everyone is busy searching around. Like in Canada, one of the big discussion forums, the Human Rights Commissions found that there were like 11 people on this neo-Nazi forum, and it turned out half of them were working for the Canadian government trying to find neo-Nazis. Right. Like, the Canadian government constituted 50% of the neo-Nazis in Canada. So they're scurrying around looking for the Nazis like this, and on the other side, it's like mainstream on the television, yeah, I'm a communist, I'd love to go through all that again.
Well, okay, so here's another problem. This is a really interesting problem. Okay, so you brought out two things, and one is no one knows about what happened in Maoist China or what happened in the Soviet Union, which is absolutely appalling because we should all know that.
As it were, aside from, let's say that this is the center of the political axis, and I'm going to have to do this for you, but okay, that's the right. The presumption is that it's just a cliff. Like, if you start by saying, I don't know, I think people should pay smaller taxes or whatever, like, you're there, and you've just gone like that, and then it's Nazism.
Right. Yeah.
And here's the really weird thing that is because all of this, look, all of this is just a footnote still of the 20th century, and we're still trying to work out what happened and why, and we don't know. And in the history books, the period we're living in will be the post-Holocaust, post-World War II, post-Gulag world, when they were still trying to sort out what happened behind the crime scene tape. Okay. So on the left, there's a very interesting thing, which is that you can go pretty much all the way like this. Mm-hmm. And first of all, there's not a very wide recognition that you had the Gulag. There's not very much known about that. People don't read Solzhenitsyn, they don't read it. So you can go pretty happily.
If you go too far left, you just hit the vegans. But there's actually the Gulag.
You might be like radical in your fairness. Okay. Yeah. So the problem here is not just they don't know what happened on that side, but it's worse than that. There was a young girl, a commentator on the TV in London a couple of mornings ago, arguing about Trump and so on, as the usual not very enlightening discussion. She's arguing with Piers Morgan, and she says, you keep on saying I'm some supporter of Barack Obama. I mean, I'm a communist. She said, I'm literally a communist. Right. And thought, if this girl had said, you should be more careful, and I'm literally a fascist, Yeah. By the way, edit that one carefully on that. No, I'm alive to YouTube.
That would be the New York Times headline.
Yeah, exactly. Literal fascist admits. But if this guy, like, everyone is busy searching around. Like in Canada, one of the big discussion forums, the Human Rights Commissions found that there were like 11 people on this neo-Nazi forum, and it turned out half of them were working for the Canadian government trying to find neo-Nazis. Right. Like, the Canadian government constituted 50% of the neo-Nazis in Canada. So they're scurrying around looking for the Nazis like this, and on the other side, it's like mainstream on the television, yeah, I'm a communist, I'd love to go through all that again.
Well, okay, so here's another problem. This is a really interesting problem. Okay, so you brought out two things, and one is no one knows about what happened in Maoist China or what happened in the Soviet Union, which is absolutely appalling because we should all know that. And so there's obviously a cliff on the left side. Now, I would say, actually, there is the possibility that as you move farther out on each end of the political spectrum, the rate at which you deteriorate accelerates. So it's not linear. I think that's possible. But having said that, that's also the case on the left. Now, one of the things we could say is, well, those idiot leftists should get their house in order because they won't differentiate themselves from their radical brethren. Okay, so now we might ask, well, why? We might ask two things. Why, and whose problem is that exactly? Okay, so the first issue of why is, well, people who are left-leaning have a hard time drawing boundaries. That's what makes them left-leaning. And I mean this technically, because left-leaning people are high in openness to experience, which is a creativity trait. So they like information flow, and they don't like borders between things. And they tend to be low in orderliness, so disorder doesn't disgust and upset them. Okay, so they can't draw boundaries, and that's why they're on the left. But boundaries have their problems, so there's some utility in people who don't like them. Okay, but the second problem is, and this isn't a problem that's only germane to the left. It's the problem of the damn 20th century. It's like, okay, when does the left go too far?
Right.
And the answer is, nobody knows. Like with the right-wingers, you can tell, man. It's like they make a claim of ethnic or racial superiority. It's like, box, Nazi. Right, and then you can see that this happens because even back in the 70s, when William F. Buckley was sort of the leading conservative, he put a box around the Ku Klux Klan and the John Birch types, and he said, I'm not you. But none of that's happening on the left. Okay, why? Well, they say, well, we stand for diversity. It's like, well, everyone likes diversity. And well, what about inclusivity? Damn right, man, let's include some people. Well, what about equality? That'd be good, Let's have some equality. It's like, okay, well, how much equality exactly? Well, then it's gradations, right? Well, equality of opportunity? Damn straight. Equality of outcome? Sounds good. How about no? Under no circumstances whatsoever. But, you know, I can't. Look, but here's the problem, man. You get somebody saying race or ethnicity group member X is detestable because of their group identity, and you think evil Nazi, but then you see someone saying, well, I just wish that everybody could have an equal outcome. And what are you going to do? Are you going to punch them? That's what you're supposed to do with Nazis. No, you're not. You're going to think, oh, that's a pretty nice person. And it's like, just because you're nice doesn't mean you're good. And just because you stand for equality of outcome doesn't mean, right, but the thing is, it's a complex technical problem, right? Because it looks like you need a multivariate equation to define pathology on the left. It's like, well, if you believe this and this and this, and too disproportionately, then we have to put a box around you. But it's not like someone wears a symbol on their damn shirt or tattooed onto their face that enables you to identify them. So we have a real structural problem here. We don't know how to box in pathology on the left.
Yeah,
no one knows, including the moderate leftists, but none of us know.
An additional problem.
Wow. How solid and thought-provoking was that part of that segment. We'll get to Sam Harris's reply in just a few seconds. But I just wanted to say, what Douglas Murray was talking about is that is so true. You know what? Anything that you say, in fact, sometimes even if you say something and you're on the conservative side, right-leaning, as soon as you say something, immediately, they don't even wait for the degradation to occur. They don't even wait for the cliff to occur. The cliff occurs as soon as you open up your mouth and you say something. And then boom, labeled right away, racist, fascist, anti-this, the whole spectrum, comes in, into play. And just like they say, they put that box around you, want to put that prison guard around you. They want to throw you in jail, toss away the key, basically. That's exactly what happens on the right. And then what Jordan Peter was saying is that it is something because people don't know or they don't want to know or whatever they think they know about that thing, or they say it wasn't as bad in socialism or wasn't bad as communism. The biggest thing is, and I think this is the reason, is because people are always saying, oh, the type of communism that they practiced wasn't the kind of communism that we would do. That was like they went off the reservation. They were wrong the way they instituted communism. That's not the way communism is supposed to be done. They didn't follow Karl Marx's theory. No, they didn't follow Pol Pot's theory. Okay, they did it the way they did it the wrong way. Socialism was done the wrong way. Marxism was done the wrong way. We're talking about 21st century communism, 21st century socialism, 21st century Marxism. We're going to do it much, much different. We're going to be inclusive and tolerant and diverse and equality of outcome, equality of everything. We're going to do everything for everybody. Everyone's going to have a piece of the pie. There aren't going to be the haves and the have-nots. It's all going to be the haves. And that's what they're trying to say. And so how do you put a box on that? Because that's the way that
There's one simple investment hack that anyone can use to lock in Starlink pre-IPO profits on demand. Did you know that you can profit?
Left has been able to frame the narrative. But you know immediately, as soon as you say white supremacist, as soon as you see KKK, it's not like you can't practice a better brand of being a KKK. It's not you can't practice a better brand of being, a Nazi or a fascist. You're just, that's it. It's perfectly well defined and can be put in that box, and you can be thrown in that box, lumped in with that box very easily by the left and the liberals. Anyways, folks, that's what we've got on tap for you today. We've got more of Sam Harris coming up and Douglas Murray and Jordan Peterson. But right now, I just want to remind you, you're watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your host, Dr. Nasir, where I put my political prescription from my political perspective. What happens when these three intellectual men come together and collide, along with social media, culture, religion, right? Everything just comes crashing together. Let's get more of their discussion with these three great minds right now.
These issues may not have a solution that we can happily live with, right? So let's sharpen this up, and this is more in the interest of steel manning our critics. You take a problem like immigration, right? Now, the intuition that's driving the left, let's take the extreme case of an open borders ethic. But borders are illegitimate. Borders are just in principle a sign of selfishness and xenophobia and unearned privilege, right? None of us can take credit for the fact that we were born into the societies we're born into, and yet we have all of the advantages of having been born there. And so it is with all of you. None of us are currently living through the civil war in Syria now, and that's a good thing for all of us. And so the concern here is that the moment you say, well, immigration is potentially a problem, right? We can't just throw open the borders to all of humanity, because what would happen? What would happen is people would continue to cross those borders until the level of well-being in the developed world diminished so much that there was no reason to cross the borders anymore, right? It would be just like some principle of osmosis, right? So
very nicely put. Very nicely put.
But the concern is that this is totally, ethically speaking, this is a totally illegitimate situation. And to shine a bright enough light on any particular story in Syria, say, you give me the right family with children, and I learn enough about them and their plight, and I recognize within 30 seconds that if I were them, I would be desperate to get to Dublin or New York or San Francisco or anywhere but Syria, right? And it seems like a completely, it seems evil to in any way perpetuate this lottery, where you pulled a bad ticket, and sorry, this defines the rest of your life and the lives of your children. And there is no bright line where any of us, well-meaning people, wherever we are on the political spectrum or wherever we are in any other question, there's no bright line where we can say, aha, that's exactly that's the solution that we know is ethical, that we know we can defend against all comers, and it can survive every test of narrative. This goes straight to the power of stories. You tell people a compelling enough story about one little girl, and it changes policy. Isn't that what happened to Angela Merkel? She just was faced with one denied refugee, and all of a sudden the policy for...
Wow, Sam didn't disappoint either, did he? No, he did not. He came back with his own absolutely brilliant, observation there. And so it's such a complex question in terms of how he described that, and succinctly, put it into perspective. But it is the power of social media, the power of pictures, the power of emotion, the power of a story. We see it, we hear it, we feel it, and we get moved. Now the question is, as individuals, Where does that movement occur? Maybe it's to, send money through a charity. Maybe it's to somehow in the form of, maybe, you feel like you need to go to that place and give of yourself. Maybe it means, that you need to, you basically say, I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to try to get food and clothing and medicines and, everything that can be needed, start some type of a fund drive, and then get everything in order, and then somehow get that material over to that person, that family, to that area, to try to do, so you're feeling good about that. You felt that you did something about that. And then, as Sam just said, but in some cases, that moves a country, that moves policy, that moves a mass of people in a certain direction. But then, like I said, that's a short-term fix. There are so many stories around the world that are occurring. It is a lottery. We are so blessed to have been born, those of us that have been born in the United States of America, in Europe, in Western democracies, in Great Britain, in the countries that are not considered third world countries, in the countries that don't have civil war right now, that don't have strife, that aren't, in some type of a struggle, that every day people are out there looking for food, that, children just dying because of malaria or disease or not enough water or not enough medicine, of starvation, of all kinds of things that are happening. You could just take a picture of a map, throw a dart, and all of a sudden, all sorts of things are gonna, all sorts of problems are there. But the question becomes is, how much of that problem do we bring those problems onto our shores? And as Sam was